Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. My name is Frank Calabrese, and I've been working with City Council the past few months over redistricting plan. Redistricting in Aurora will be a challenge because the census came with some interesting figures. And I know the City Council has seen this presentation before, but I will go over it again for the public, and I think it will answer a lot of questions. So, over the past 10 years, according to the U.S. Census, Aurora has seen a significant population decrease. And that population decrease is centered in the center of the city, and it is especially felt by wards 2, 3, 4, 7, and 1. Also, the city of Aurora has experienced some population increase, especially in the 10th ward in the eastern part of the city in DuPage County. According to federal law, each ward should be within 10% of each other. It's one person, one vote. So you don't want to have a ward that's significantly larger or smaller than another, because then your voice is not as representative on the city council. So it's important that we redistrict the wards every 10 years to accurately reflect the population of the city. And as you can see, the 10th ward had a 14% population gain. The second ward had a very significant decrease, a 30% decrease over 10 years. The third ward, a 23% decrease. The seventh ward, an 18% decrease. And the first ward, a 16% decrease. And the fourth ward, a 13% decrease. And again, over 10% deviation is against the law. So we have many wards that are significantly below that, and also the 10th ward, which is significantly above that population. And again, this is just kind of the comprehensive data behind that. And you can see this is, the second ward, for example, lost, according to the census, almost 6,000 people in a 10-year period, whereas the 10th ward gained almost 3,000 people in a 10-year period. And according to the U.S. Census, the population of Aurora decreased about 9%. So when it comes to redistricting, population gain and losses are, I think, an important tool to look at, but also it's important that we start with deviation. So what deviation means is how far are you from the mean. And so if I color-coded this map to make it easy. So if you're green, that means you're significantly higher than than the median, the mean actually. If you're red, you're significantly below the mean. So by just looking at this map, you can intuitively know that the center of the city needs the center wards in the city need the gain population, whereas the wards in the periphery have to lose population. So the 10th ward is 27% above the median ward deviation. 9th ward is 15% above. 8th ward is 13% above. 2nd ward is 24% below, and the 3rd ward is 18% below. And so the wards in the center of the city are going to have to gain population, whereas the wards, especially in the eastern end of the city, are going to have to lose population. And again, this is just the data behind the deviation numbers for the wards in Aurora. Next, we're going to talk about demographics, which is an important component to redistricting because we want to make sure that all communities and minority groups are properly represented. This is a map of just not the city of the Aurora, but the surrounding census tracts. And I color-coded them so you can see the kind of the racial tapestry of the area. So you have some census tracts, particularly in the center of the city, that are majority Latino. Toward the eastern end of the city, you have census tracts where Asians comprise the largest racial group. And then, again, around the periphery of the city and the surrounding areas, whites make up the largest racial group. And here is just a zoomed-in map that's a little clearer to see with the wards outlined. And again, you can see wards like the 2nd ward, the 3rd ward, especially. This is made up of Latino populations. And then you see some Asian population where Asians are the largest group toward the eastern end of the city. If you specifically break it down by ward, you will see that the city of Aurora has the second ward, the first ward, third, the fourth, the sixth, and the seventh ward, where Latinos make the largest racial group. And the fifth ward, the eighth ward, the ninth ward, and the 10th ward, where whites make the largest racial group. And again, it's important to have a demographic analysis of the city when making these maps, because we want to make sure minority groups are properly represented. And again, this is just the data behind the map I just showed you. And you can see you have 5 wards where Latinos make the largest group. And thank you for bearing with me, especially the city council members have already seen this before. And so I'm going to go into the proposals. So I made 2 proposals, which are also available on the city website. Because of the population challenges that the city of Aurora is facing, unless you want to radically change the wards, these proposals are generally going to look like the final product, because unless you want to change wards completely, you're going to have to stretch them out. And so we're going to have the general philosophy is we're going to take wards that are underpopulated in the center of the city, and we're going to stretch them out and absorb in the areas where wards are overpopulated. So this is what I call Plan 1A, and I'm going to pull up this slide, which shows a comparison. So the solid line is the current boundary, and then the colored in portion is the proposal. And if you remember the current slides, the 5th ward was overpopulated, and the wards to its east are underpopulated. So in order to help out its neighbors, we moved some population from the 5th ward into the 4th ward. So we could keep the 4th ward generally where it's located. This also consolidates the area around Aurora University into one ward, the 4th ward. Then moving east, the 6th ward, we keep very much like its current boundaries. The 2nd ward is a challenge, because the 2nd ward, if you remember, it was 30% underpopulated, and that's a lot of people to find. And so the 2nd ward, in this proposal, I expanded into 3 directions: into the downtown area, where the 2nd ward has previously been, slightly to the south and slightly to the northeast. The 3rd ward, expanding, which is again another ward that's underpopulated. In this proposal, it expands to the southeast into the 9th ward. The 7th ward is a ward that I keep in the downtown center area, and I also expand it into the 9th ward and the 8th ward toward the eastern end. The 1st ward in this proposal expands to the northeast in DuPage County into the 10th ward. The 8th ward expands, which has to lose population, gives some of its area into the 7th ward. The 9th ward loses, which is again is overpopulated, loses some of its population to the 3rd, the 7th ward. And then the 10th ward, under this proposal, again, which has to lose a population, it loses population in the 1st ward. I should have used the pointer, along the DuPage County boundary. I have my pointer for this. So this is a demographic overview of the wards, and you can see that it still maintains strong minority representation. One of the challenges in redistricting is that, according to the census, the center of the city, which is majority Latino, is lost a lot of population. So it's important that we keep strong minority wards when we redistrict. And we have 4 majority Latino wards, and the 1st ward is just about majority Latino at 48%. And then I have Plan 1B, which is essentially the same as Plan 1A. The difference is the 10th ward. So the 10th ward, which is again, it's significantly overpopulated and has to lose a significant amount of population. And there are different ways you can, remove the population from the 10th ward. In the previous proposal, we removed some population on the very north end of town. In this proposal, we remove the Stonegate, Stonebridge communities, and we place them in the first ward. But besides that, the Plan 1A and Plan 1B are the same. Both of these plans make the wards legal in the sense that they're within the population means and they respect minority representation. The 10th ward, that's a policy issue that we want to listen to residents and their concerns, how to best move forward with the eastern end of the city. But again, this is just a first proposal, and we want to open up to the public and get feedback so that we can have a map that the city is proud of.
Thank you, Frank.